This is Navy Quartermaster Bob Goralski reporting from Tokyo, Japan. The Naval Aviation Reserve program is paying off in big dividends over North Korea today. Neighbors and friends are flying and fighting together, pulverizing the communists at every opportunity. Take the case of attack Squadron 923, former weekend warriors from the St. Louis area. These men are aboard the aircraft carrier USS Von Richard in the Korean combat zone, engaged in inflicting maximum damage on the enemy. They trained on a part-time basis at the Naval Air Station at Lambert Field prior to being recalled to active duty. Until being recalled, the men of the squadron followed various civilian pursuits. That is Lieutenant Charles Badaway, 9545 Plainfield Drive, Rock Hill, Missouri. His job?
I was a senior engineer at the Emerson Electric Manufacturing Company in their armament division.
Then there's Lieutenant Bob Kane, 1314 Gady, East St. Louis.
Cost estimator for printing company.
And Lieutenant Dale Moritz, Route 2, Kirksville, Missouri.
I was a student at the University of Missouri, and you might say I've had two occupations, going to school and serving in the Navy.
These men are representative of the Skyraider pilots and crewmen manning planes of war. How are these men faring against the enemy? What's life like in the combat zone? After 2 weeks aboard the aircraft carrier Von Richard, we have a pretty good idea. For the next several minutes, we'd like to give you a glimpse of carrier operations and the lives of the men. First, the carrier. Its flight deck from which the planes take off and land is 880 feet long, just a few feet short of 3 football fields placed end to end. The Von Richard weighs 28,000 tons without equipment, planes, or men. To balance the scale of the carrier on one side, you'd have to have 16,000 private automobiles on the other side. This carrier can tear through the water at 40 miles an hour, but it's as smooth a ride as you'll get in the smoothest car on the smoothest highway. The men work hard, keeping everything in condition. The crewmen of the squadron work long hours, keeping their planes in tip-top shape. We asked Chief Aviation Structural Mechanic Gene Arnett, 957 South Newton, Springfield, Missouri, how long his men work.
That depends on how many hops, how many planes got up, or what happens. Usually about 15 hours.
Long hours and a rough grind for the crewmen, to be sure. When you walk about the flight deck, you see men in various colored jerseys and helmets. Blue, green, red, and many others. Here's a fellow in red. What are his duties? He is Airman Dan Murphy, 2505 Grover, St. Louis.
Well, my duties are as an ordnanceman, loading the planes with bombs, fusing them, getting the bombs to the planes. That's primarily our job, and replenishing the guns with ammunition.
There's not a lot of heavy work because some of those bombs are awfully big, aren't they?
Yes, it is. Take, for example, a 2,000-pound bomb, which is the largest one we carry, is quite a job moving back on the deck. But we get maybe 2 or 3 men on the job getting it back there. But there's plenty of times where one man has to do it.
Is there an element of danger handling those bombs around the flight deck and the hangar deck?
Not too much so. First of all, they can take a lot of abuse if the fuses are not in them. And we don't install the fuses until they're ready to go up on a hop. They will take quite a bit of abuse.
How soon just before the hop do you set the fuses?
Oh, half hour to 45 minutes.
Again, we often see pictures of some of the bombs being readied by crews before they go over North Korea. Have you ever taken part in this, loading things on the bombs in the form of a personal message to the communists over there?
Oh, yes. When we get time, feel like clowning around, we might put on there from the boys back home, write a little message on them. But now, don't get me wrong, we've got plenty to do, but it's mostly spectators that get the chalk and get up there and mark the noses of bombs.
We then talked to aviation ordnanceman Roy Hartman, 309 Clark Street, Webster Grove, who told us of the dangers to the pilots who have to face heavy enemy anti-aircraft. What is the primary danger to a pilot under these conditions?
Well, the primary danger, I believe, is getting his engine shut out.
Even all that ammunition and armor there and all the bombs and everything, that isn't too much of a danger?
No, it isn't, not unless the bombs are armed.
And they're not armed at that time?
No, they aren't. They don't arm until they leave the plane.
Some of the pilots are shot down by the enemy. That's war. Here is Lieutenant Harold Reedaboo, 2665 Center Street, Granite City, Illinois. Tell us of one flight he'll remember for a long time.
Well, we took off at 13:30 on a bridge strike over North Korea in the vicinity of Sing-Chang, which is about 50 miles north of the coast town of Hungnam. And we had knocked out two bridges in the vicinity of Sing-Chang. We're proceeding south. We conducted an attack on the marshalling yards at the small town of Simpo, and we were told by our strike leader in making these runs that accurate small arms were reported in the area. And on the third run, I found out just how accurate the small arms were, because as I was pulling out of my run, I felt a slight jolt in the engine of my plane, and my wingman informed me immediately that the plane was smoking and that I was losing oil. And at the same time, my cockpit filled with smoke, and I realized that I was going to have to do something fast. And I immediately headed out over the water and headed south towards the group of friendly ships which were operating in the vicinity of Hungnam. So I made all the necessary preparations for water ditching and unbuckled my parachute, tightened the safety belt and the shoulder straps, turned into the wind, and made my approach. And I was able to put the plane down without too much damage. As a matter of fact, the plane stayed completely intact, and I had plenty of time to release the safety belt and get out of the plane, pull the chute and the raft out, and go ahead and inflate the raft and get into it. By that time, the plane had sunk, and the planes who were flying overhead had contacted a friendly helicopter, which was operating off of the ships at Hungnam, and the helicopter proceeded to the scene, and within about 30 minutes I was picked up and put aboard an LSC.
Well, when Lieutenant Reedable returned to the carrier, the other pilots exchanged stories with him about their ditches. Lieutenant Bob Renard, 6250 Enright University steady, the father of 4 children, has been shot down in the Korean War. But when there's a bull session about ditchings, he'll top them all with one that happened many years ago.
I had a previous experience while flying from Miami to Key West in 1945 in a TBM. It was the same type of ditching. The oil pressure went down to 0, and however, on that occasion, I stayed airborne as long as the engine was running and had to make a dead stick landing. But I was fortunate enough to get within half a mile of the overseas highway, and at that time I inflated the raft and paddled ashore where 2 Greyhound buses were waiting, one en route to Miami and one en route to Key West. I boarded the bus to Key West and proceeded on my way.
You remain the only naval pilot who's ever been picked up by a Greyhound bus.
I believe that's right.
There's plenty of teamwork in the squadron. Maybe it's because all these men have known each other for many years. Lieutenant Ed Woelm, 3838 Missouri Avenue, St. Louis, and Lieutenant James Sagan, Hillsborough, Illinois, have known each other for a long time.
Yes, Ed and I served together in Composite Squadron 7 during World War II.
Lieutenant Woelm, when did you first two meet?
It was in September or October 1944.
And then you were discharged and worked together in the reserve squadron. Now you're back together again.
That's correct. We were together all the time since 44. Same squad.
Lieutenant Woelm, is he flying more in the Korean War than he did during World War II?
Well, we're flying much more now. We got 3-hour hops now, and the old times, an hour and a half was a lot of time to me.
Now you're flying twice as much.
That's all right.
And how about the number of days you're flying? You get as many days rest between hops?
Well, no, we're flying more now.
But the men are doing a tremendous job. What about a particular mission? Lieutenant Junior Grade Hank Shuckneck, 16 South Iola Drive, Webster Grove, the squadron's air intelligence officer, and Lieutenant D. Rod, Marion, Illinois, were asked if they could remember an instance of a debrief in which the pilots narrated to Lieutenant Shuckneck the events of a certain hop.
Well, I can remember giving D and his division quite an important highway bridge in hostile North Korean territory
several days ago. And when they came back, one of the first questions was, did you get the bridge? And we sat down, and he was really giving it a going over.
How about that, Lieutenant?
Yes, that's right. That's the day, Hank, that my division, made up of Lieutenant Tom Boy from Carolina, Missouri, and Lieutenant Ernie McGuire from over on the east side in St. Louis, and Lieutenant Joe Podner, also from there. We got 3 bridges on that one mission, and then came back in Wonsan Bay and destroyed a gun emplacement on the way back.
And the information you got on the debriefing from this flight, then, proved invaluable to future flights.
Oh, invaluable to future flights, and also as far as the overall naval situation went, it was quite a blow to the enemy that day when these boys came back after having been assigned one bridge with terrific, intense, accurate anti-aircraft fire. They not only clobbered this one bridge, but they got 2 more, plus this very important gun position, which has been giving the Navy, United Nations Navy ships out there in the harbor of Wonsan quite a showing from the beach.
What does the Navy think of VA-923? Here's the commander of Carrier Air Group 102, Commander Hal Funk.
Being called back from civilian life to fight this Korean War has resulted in many personal sacrifices and job losses for these reserves. However, their maturity and know-how and determination to do a good job has resulted in the highest performance of our airplanes and ordnance and electronic equipment. Among these reserves are the finest combat pilots in the world. These Navy reserve pilots deserve all the praise and consideration possible for their contribution to the United Nations effort in Korea.
This is Navy Quartermaster Bob Goralski in Tokyo, Japan, returning you now to St. Louis.